Great. Now, as we said, we've got lots going on today, and I know you all know this because you've come especially to hear these two lovely people. But the first person that's going to be sharing is Abbie. So, Abbie, can you come up? Give her a huge round of applause. Abbie is our new youth pastor, and we are so excited. She took the role at the beginning of July, but wow, she's had a ride, and she's going to be sharing with you what's been going on. It's been an immense couple of months, hasn't it, Abbie? And we are just delighted that she's going to share her heart and her vision and all that God has already started to do, and also how you can be involved, how you can pray for her, support our young people. So I'm going to sit down and hand over to you, Abbie. So yeah, give her lots of big smiles and be excited at everything that God's doing.
Thank you, Keely. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so just checking the time. I'm going to make sure that I'm off by 11:30. I'm being accountable to everyone. I want to give Tina the time that she deserves. But I wanted to go into a little bit more, just telling some stories, really. It's just a collection of all the stories of what's been going on in the past couple of months. So I started this role on the 1st of July, so we're only 2 months in, believe it or not, but it feels like all the stuff's been happening I kind of expected it to be more like 6 months or a year, but I just wanted to take you along for the ride of since the 1st of July, what's kind of been going on in here, and mainly out there. I'm very much a one for community involvement, community development, but I've kind of grouped everything into 3 kind of areas where Riverside wanted to really focus, and where a lot of my passions have been kind of funneled and fine-lined, really. So I'm going to go into a bit more about what's been happening with schools, which has, just writing this and thinking about all the conversations that I've been having, I hope that I can capture some of what had been going on, and just those communications and just seeing God working in such wonderful ways that we were just speechless, like, how is this happening? So I'm going to go into those 3 areas a little bit more, but first a little bit more about me, if you don't know who I am. So I am Abbie. I'm 34. I've been a Christian since I was 20. So I've had no experience of being a child in church. I've had no experience of being a young person in church. Which for a long time felt like a disadvantage, but has actually become such a great strength to be able to expand what it means to be a Christian, what it means to experience God, especially in today's world. So a lot of kind of my experiences have been with what I bring to this role. I've worked for a lot of different organisations. So when I became a Christian, I had like a refocusing of what I wanted life to be, the sort of person I wanted to be, where I wanted to pour myself into, and it was actually the youth ministers at the church I became a Christian in approached me. I'd been a Christian for 3 months, and they said, "We'd love you to volunteer in our youth club." And I laughed in their faces and said, "Why would I want to do that?" It's funny how God works, isn't it? It just put me on a path that, things that you just can't quite explain, but you just have this passion in you just to want to bring the best out of people, and for me, it's young people. So a lot of my experience in what I bring to the role, other than personally, my professional experience comes from Sure Start, run by KCC. I did my apprenticeship with them. I worked with the Family Trust, doing a lot of Christian assemblies, after-school clubs, lunch clubs in primary schools. The Amber Foundation, I was a senior team leader, and Porchlight project manager, helping young people who found themselves homeless, leaving the care system, being in supported accommodation. Oasis Hub Waterloo is where I did my placement as a community development worker while I was studying my very long title of my degree, which is very unnecessary, but Church and Community Work and Practical Theology, which Chris Waters also went there, which we had very different experiences, but we seem to have found the same sense of humour. So, swings and roundabouts. He's got the same heart as me, though. And most recently, I was at East Kent MenCap working with adults with learning disabilities and young people with autism when kind of the doors started to be knocked and opened into this role. I also bring experience in my mental health first aid training, big passions of mine, mental emotional health. So, enough about me. In supporting schools, so there has been some incredible conversations that have gone on. So I started on the 1st of July and I thought, oh, it's right at the end of the term, schools are about to break up, I better get in quick. So day 2, I emailed the Whitstable School and Herne Bay High. I thought, well, I'll start with the 2 big ones. We'll see where that goes, because it can be quite difficult when you represent a church to work with schools. There's all kinds of assumptions, mistrust, which, fair enough. And schools are under more pressure than they've ever been before, just like in so many other areas, especially post-COVID. There's a lot of kind of ripples that everyone's still feeling from it. But 2nd of July, I thought, right, I'll just try. I'll try and get in there quickly. So I said, here's who I am, here's where I'm from, this is some of the stuff I've done. I just want to offer my expertise to you in whatever way you want it. You tell me what you need, here's my skill set, let's see how we can work together and how I can benefit you and your pupils in whatever way. Amazingly, they did get back to me and we arranged some meetings for the 9th of July and the 10th of July. So the 9th, I had a half an hour Zoom meeting with Miss Sullivan and Miss Malloy from Herne Bay High. And we had a great conversation about Riverside, who we are. So they haven't been here yet. They haven't seen the new youth hub that we have here. They haven't seen Riverside and kind of got a sense of who we are. But I did the best that I could to kind of convey what we're about. And we got some great ideas out of it. When we kind of ended the call, it was like, okay. They said they'll go away, they'll think about it. There were some things they had to work through, safeguarding things, processes, stuff like that. 40 minutes later, sat in the office. You may not be able to read this, but I'll read it out to you. I wanted to include this just so you can feel what it was like in that moment after 40 minutes, just getting on with some other stuff. I was like, right, maybe give it a couple of weeks, maybe after the school holidays, and we'll pick it up from there. Hi, Abbie. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. We will be very happy to be able to include you as part of our support package we can offer to our pupils. We will put a referral form together for our internal purposes, and so it gives you a background and some context of the young person we are referring. Areas which could be popular with us are supporting our EBSA students, which stands for Emotionally Based School Avoidance, supporting our EBSA students with their attendance and bridging the gap with school, unpicking escalating behaviours, LGBTQ+ advocacy and support, potential group work targeting unkindness among peers. We spoke about looking at half a day a week from September. Let's keep in touch and we can develop this as we go along. Kind regards, Sophie Sullivan. So that was day 2. And it's just kind of been a bare knuckle ride ever since. So the following, that was on the 9th of July, got that reply. 10th of July, I had the meeting with Mrs. Epps from the Whitstable School, who did come to Riverside. She didn't have much time, but we managed a 10-minute meeting. She had a quick look at the youth hub space that we had at the time, and we had a quick chat, and I conveyed, these are my skills, this is the time I have, this is what we're about, this is, what I'd like to offer the school. And that was that. 10-minute meeting, rushed away. I thought, well, whatever happens, happens. 40 minutes later again, I got another email. Hi, Abbie. It was good to meet you today. I've booked our family room for you from the first week back of term, 5th of September, every Thursday, 11 till 3. Is that okay? We would be looking for you to have one-to-one sessions with some of our students who sometimes struggle with friendship issues, truancy and punctuality concerns, and a few LGBT plus pupils too. Does that sound okay? I'll come up with a list of names once I've spoken to parents, and I'll send over DBS information for you in a moment. Thanks, Laura. That was also followed up about half an hour later with a, as you're going to be here, do you think we could do a lunch club as well? Yeah, chuck that in, yeah, let's go for it. 10th of July, 10 days in, and that's where we kind of started off from, which was just the most surreal thing, where we were expecting, I don't know what we were expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. So the positive of that obviously is that that's such a great opening of a partnership. The other side of that is also the need is greater than ever from what we're seeing. So that all starts this coming Thursday, where I'll be going into the Whitstable school. So if any of you go to the Whitstable school, I'll keep an eye out for you. So some other partnerships. I've had some great conversations with the Kent Family Hub locally, which they used to be Sure Start and the Youth Services for KCC. They've now combined to become Kent Family Hubs. So this started with what quite often happens, where people come to Riverside where rooms have been booked out, and they come and have a wander around, they chat to people. So one of the staff, Tracy, came and looked at the youth hub and went, wow, this is amazing, and sent an email that I followed up and met with her and their senior family practitioner for youth, Rob, and they came and we had an hour-long meeting, which was just a buzz of passion and potential and all the good things of passionate people who want to bring change to the world. It turns out that some of the staff there I also worked with 12 years ago when I was an apprentice, and they did recognise me. Hopefully that's a good thing. But it was really lovely to reconnect, and it's all of those coincidences where you go, well, surely there's only so many coincidences can happen before you go, okay, God, I believe you now. So we've had some really good chats with them. There's a lot of potential for a lot of co-working, some of their youth workers to potentially work with me and the youth team here to kind of co-work doing some youth club stuff, bringing different skills and expertise, and potentially me to go and work with them out in the community in some of their things that they've been doing. So that's where that's at. But it's just got such a good relationship already with them. It's really great to see, because I know funding, if anyone's got insight into KCC and their funding and youth services, there is no funding. So what we can bring here will be the destination place for young people. So that's what we've been working on, because if we're going to have a youth hub, it's going to be the best youth hub in the area. So, I wasn't here right from the beginning of when all of the change happened, but it's been a privilege to hear the stories of how far this has come in the whole journey. So the picture there is one that we found of what the Youth Hub space did look like before the work started. What was it before, Simon?
It was during COVID, we were distributing food.
Yeah, so distributing food during COVID. So the building was very warehousey. I'm sure we could kind of use some edgy words of like it was rugged and stuff, but it was, in need of some TLC, and especially for the kind of space that we want for young people. Some of what I'm also really passionate about that I learned through working with homeless charities is that environment plays a really important role for people in recovery and for resilience, because it gives a sense of value. not just to a space, but to the people within it and the people that use it, which is why we always want to make sure that we give the best quality, because people, even halfway through the building of the youth hub, people come in and they go, wow, the feeling that you get here is like no other. And that's what we want, especially for young people, is that this is for you and we value you. See for yourself. It speaks for itself. So there was so much work that was done here. Insulation, electrics, heating, replastering, new windows, and you can no longer see and hear seagull feet on the roof, which was always anyone who walked in and was like, what's that tapping noise? And looked up and there's orange feet just there. To what it now looks like. Correct noise, thank you. Wait till you see it in person. It really is something that we're very proud of. And it does, it really gives that sense of value to whoever walks in that room. And it gives me great pride to say that this is for young people, purpose-built. We also have another small space that was redecorated, and I know Jake has been just so excited in every step of this process. Was our football cage, which arrived over the summer. I was involved in helping with the lifting as well, I'm just not in the photo. I'm taking the photo. Which was, all the different panels, bringing them in and just bringing that space to life with something, that's Jake, beaming with a big smile, just to give an additional indoor space that young people can use, that I'm sure after the service, Jake is going to be helping everyone to use the football cage and challenging everyone in the proper rules, tactics, and how to win. But just something else that started just as an idea of a what if, and yet there's a few times where Jake and I have stood there and we've, it's just the realisation of this is real, like it's here. And this is just going to be something that's going to be so invaluable for what it can bring. Even though it's just a football cage, it's never just anything, but it's what it can mean going forward. It's also portable, so there are some plans we might be able to move it for other things, but all things I'm working on. Something else in our youth hub space was this bar cafe area that, I managed to be the one to make decisions on worktops and stuff. I've never designed anything, and to suddenly have these design options, it's quite surreal. But Richard and Pete have done a fabulous job in putting that together and bringing that to life just from a few. Didn't it start on Pinterest with a few image ideas, and then it's been tweaked, and I've left out a picture of what the finished article looks like, because it really is something that I want you all to see in person, because it really completes that space to give it that sense of this is a home away from home in what it can offer. Which sounds weird, me saying that about a bar, but you'll know what I mean when you see it. So what else has been developing? That's kind of practical stuff. So I did a bit of an overhaul, but I've refreshed all of our registration and consent forms around our system for young people. I'm very passionate about safeguarding and making sure that young people are well protected, and that we're giving them the highest standard of what we can give them. So some of my previous expertise I've brought into this role. I brought in a team interest form. So for anyone interested in kind of becoming part of the youth team, there are a number of options that you can have a look through. All of these forms and things I've got copies of on the welcome desk and down in the youth hub on the bar, so feel free to just have a look at any of them. There's no obligation, but there's a lot of exciting things going to be happening if you want to be part of it. So our team members usually have a handbook, which I've separated now. It was children and youth work. There is now a separate youth work team members handbook, which there are some copies as well if anyone wants to flick through them and just to see what's on there. Also very important that I thought, especially for Sundays, I know that in our children's work, people have T-shirts, so they're easily recognisable. In the youth team, we're going to have lanyards, especially for people who are new, or if we have young people that come by themselves, which could be a potential that will be easily identifiable as part of the youth team and people who are safe to go to if you have a question or anything like that. What do we have next? Some other changes. So the Riverside Youth Group has historically always been on a Tuesday, 7 to 8:30. So that I've moved to a Thursday. So the Riverside Youth Group will now be on Thursdays, 7 till 8:30. Reasoning behind that is it is really important to have a life group. And this is so I can attend, yes, some people in my life group. And that's such a really important part of being part of church and faith and being around a smaller group of people that you know well and can grow with. So my life group, we did look at all kinds of options, but so I could still be part of my life group, we have moved the youth group to accommodate that. So that is also a plug for life groups. If you're part of one, keep going, because they really are everything that you could want in kind of supportive people, especially with a large group of people. You have a smaller group of people that you become close to and that you can really turn to for all kinds of things, whether that's jokes or support or, I mean, they get their fair amount of stick from me, I can assure you of that. So also, something that I changed up a bit was on Sundays. So our youth church was 11 till 12. So young people would come in here for worship. We did some thinking around that. And my thinking as well is how to make it more accessible for young people, especially young people who, this can be, even for adults, this can be quite an overwhelming space and quite daunting. But as well, to try and give much more of a group dynamic with the young people, rather than kind of a wandering in, wandering out sort of thing. So September onwards, young people can come straight into the youth hub, whatever time they come, and we'll kind of start in there at the time the service starts in here, just so they can kind of come and be part of it. There isn't kind of this, come and stand in here, be part of worship, and then go out again. So we're going to enjoy the hub together and give a lot more time for them as well, to have that time to do church and be church together. Also gives us a good access for young people who, do you know what, they've never encountered church before. And that was kind of some of my experience, even though I was 20 when I first came to church. Being someone who had no church experience whatsoever, some of the lessons that and experiences I picked up through that have really helped in some of my thinking going forward. So that's kind of stuff that's set up and ready, thinking ahead. We've got this incredible youth hub space that we would love to use fully, and to offer an after-school youth club for young people where they can come and use the youth hub space. So I put coming soon because there's been quite enough things to be getting on with, but that's something I'm going to be working with the schools as a way for giving young people somewhere safe to come. That's not school, that's not home, and isn't like entrenching on other spaces as such, like they've got to buy something or they're only allowed for a certain time. A space that's just for them. They can hang their coat up, they can kick their shoes off, pop their bag away, and they can come and just enjoy the space and know they're safe, meet their friends, have some fun, and just be young people. So that's coming soon. So this is hopefully going to become a reality. This is a neon sign that's been designed because we want to really make this place, this youth hub, the best it can be. And there are people who may be able to join the youth team. There may be people who can help us in other ways. As much as that has been done, there are some things that we would like to put in the youth hub that we haven't been able to get, and that's where you come in as church. So I've created a wish list of things that we would really love to be able to put in the youth hub. Everything from a coat stand, trying to think through the whole process when a young person comes in. You've got somewhere to hang your coat, you've got somewhere to put your bag, you can kick your shoes off, you can sit on the big sofa with your feet up, just like you would at home, and be comfortable, play games, keep your score from cage football so you know when you're beating Jake. And if anyone would like to contribute towards these gifts for the young people, we have a slideshow that's going to be playing at the end of the service, just so there are lots of images of what they are, the things that we would like to get. We also have a gift list printed out on the welcome desk and in the youth hub space. For anyone who would like to be part of this, in providing a gift to really help that space be the best it can be. So, after the service, the youth hub is going to be officially open. No more kind of secret, or you can kind of go in, kind of not. So between 12 and 1, we're going to have it open, and I would encourage everyone, come and have a look. Come and play some games, beat Jake at football. And use the space as if you were experiencing it as a young person. Relive some of your youth. Really get the feel of what we've brought to that space and what we want it to be for young people. And there's still a lot of things to be coming up in the future, but have a look at everything and really get the sense of what this can be now and in the future. If you want to ask any questions, I'll be down there, and just come and enjoy it, come and see it. So just coming up from next week, going to start going into schools, and we're going to get this rolling.
16 different countries and nations represented here on these flags. Aren't they amazing? Hold them up high, guys. Hold them as high as you can. Aren't they incredible? Well, without further ado, let's welcome Tina. Come on up, Tina. Can you get under the flags? That's it. Okay, guys, what's your plan with the flags? Okay, then they go. Thank you, guys, for bringing those. They're amazing. So what's happened with the flags is, essentially, as Tina has moved from port to port and country to country, Leanne's been buying the flags, and the guys have been praying about the nation she's visiting and learning more about the country she's gone to. So anyway, over to you. You all right?
Yeah.
They're a friendly bunch, aren't they? Some of them are sort of a bit scaly, but they'll warm up. Don't worry. Okay, over to you. Oh, you'll need a mic.
Hello everyone. I hope you are all so well. It feels so good to be back, even though it is only going to be for a short time, but I thought I would take my chance when I could. For those of you that don't know why I am serving on the Logos Hope, let me just quickly tell you the story. So a few years ago, I was in Northern Ireland doing a worship internship with one of the churches out there. As my time was coming to an end, I knew I had a choice to make. Did I stay for a second year, or did I go home and carry on my job here? I didn't feel that coming home was the right thing to do, but God wasn't telling me to stay either. So I felt quite lost, as I didn't have a clear picture of anything, and I had no idea what I would do next. From an early age, I did have a big dream for my life, which I always knew was from God. And I knew at some point I wanted to do 3 things. I wanted to go on a big adventure, I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to help people through showing them the love of Jesus. They were still very much in my heart, so I started to pray about it and see if they might be my next steps. I asked my parents and my family to be praying as well, as I knew I needed their support in such a big decision. About a week after this, my family actually came to visit me, and we all had a holiday together, and that's when my mum and dad shared with me about the Logos Hope, which they felt God had put on their heart. As a friend who had just finished their time on board shared with them the idea. They showed me a video on YouTube that same day, and I found myself crying in this coffee shop whilst watching it, because I knew it lined up with my dream, and that this is what I'd been waiting for all of these years. That same day, I actually registered my interest to join the ship, and the process began from there. I found out just before I left Northern Ireland that I had been accepted for 2 years, and the rest is history. I joined the ship when I was 21, and a few weeks ago, I turned 23. And I just wanted to say thank you all very much for your lovely surprise birthday video message. I had no idea, and it really filled my heart with so much joy. And I can truly say that the dream I had and I'd been praying for and carried in my heart has been everything I wanted and more. I want to encourage everyone here, but especially all the children, that God always hears you. He plants seeds in our heart, and if we are following him and we want to serve him, then he will help make things happen. For me, I just had to keep trusting and believing that God knew what was best for me, and that is an ongoing journey. So far, I have been to 16 countries and 26 different ports, and we are currently in Tema, Ghana. This is the route that we have taken so far, starting in the Middle East, in Aqaba, Jordan, and then ending up with a long tour of Africa in Tema, Ghana, all the way over on the left there. Every place we have visited has been new and exciting and a unique experience. And I would love to tell you about some of my adventures in these wonderful places. My favourite port and country so far has been Basra, Iraq, where we went last year in April. Now, I never in a million years thought I would ever go to a place like Iraq, which is known for conflict and war, but especially on a missionary ship. We had a 10-day sailing to get there, so everybody on board had enough time to get used to the idea. The process of Logos Hope actually sailing there and being allowed to go really was not easy at all, but God made a way, he made it happen, and in the end the government of Iraq actually invited us to come into their country. When we arrived alongside, the quayside was full of people, schools, locals and military forces. It was late evening, but everyone was there. They had their flags, they sang and they danced for us, and we even had 2 fireworks shows. It was so moving to have such a welcome, and I felt incredibly blessed by this opportunity, as we were actually the first ship to go to Iraq since the war ended in 2011. The people of Iraq were extremely hospitable to us, so kind and so generous. We went during Ramadan, so we knew things would be difficult for the local people, but we were ready to help them and serve them in whatever way they needed. Talking of generosity, other than the fuel that we used to get there, which we had to pay for, the Iraqi government paid in full for the whole ship's visit. Again, quite amazing. The locals even opened up food shops during the day. They cooked for us and gave us water, even when they couldn't have anything for themselves. I was also in the process of actually healing from a bad knee injury at the time, and it was really difficult for me to get around, but they always asked if I was okay or if I ever needed anything. It was so much fun exploring their country, going on a boat tour along one of their rivers, seeing their landmarks and taking just all the beautiful flowers and trees that grow there. A few months ago, we actually even found out that a Muslim man from Iraq wrote a book about the ship after we had visited, because it had impacted him so much, and it has now been published. I am forever grateful for the opportunity we had to make a kingdom impact in such an unreached country, and for the friendships we were able to make there. Another country I absolutely loved going to was South Africa, and especially Cape Town, which we went to earlier in June this year. We were docked in the V&A waterfront, right in the heart of the city. We had the view of Table Mountain right next to us, which was just an incredible sight. I had the opportunity to go on a hike on Table Mountain, which is actually one of the 7 wonders of nature. On one of the days, I ended up joining a group in the centre area, right outside the front of the waterfront mall. We performed many of our cultural dances, which actually sparked people to ask us what we were doing. This then meant we could speak to these people about the ship and tell them what it's all about. During our time here, I was also able to go out with friends and explore all the wonderful views and make lasting memories with them. Another country we went to was actually Saudi Arabia. We went to 2 ports there, Jeddah, then Jazan. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to get off, and nobody was allowed to get on. It was sad, but just being there and being able to pray every day, pray for the country and the people, was more than enough for me. God knew what we needed to do, and I'm sure, and I'm hoping that we left leaving an impact of some kind. For my birthday last year, we actually arrived in Victoria, Seychelles, and that was just so special. A birthday memory I won't ever forget. We had people all along the quayside again welcoming us. They were also cheering, waving flags, singing and dancing too. We usually get a local dance every time we arrive somewhere. We were only there for a week, but I was able to go exploring with friends and enjoy some trips out as well. A very beautiful country, known for some of the best beaches in the world. In all of these places we go to, everyone will get what is called a sea day every week, if possible. And a sea day stands for Connection Day. This means we either meet with local people on or off the ship and help them in whatever way that we can. Some of the sea days I have had are visiting a tuberculosis hospital, going to a women's prison, visiting a homeless shelter, being involved in a sewing sea day on board, visiting an orphanage, and even a football sea day, which was a lot of fun, and so many more. One thing I was actually really worried about before going on the ship was getting seasick during sailings, as I do get quite travel sick even in a car. But actually, I've been amazed at how I've coped. I've definitely felt seasick during sailings, but I've always felt better after a short while or even just a couple of days. And I have never once actually been sick. I know that the Kingfishers here have constantly been praying for me in their program sessions every month, which has been a huge blessing, and I just wanted to thank all the children for their prayers and support, as it has made a massive difference for me. I also want to tell you all about the highlights of sailing as well. We get to see many sea creatures such as dolphins, whales, seals, jellyfish, flying fish, and a whole lot more. Just seeing some of God's creations in that setting is a wonderful experience. I've seen many sunrises and sunsets, and that just makes my heart so happy. Even if I'm having a hard day or a hard time, the colours, they just shine so bright in the sky, and it is really calming in that moment. When we sail, we are actually allowed to sleep outside on deck 9, which I have done a few times before with my friends. You do have to wrap up warm, but it's really a fun thing to do, and it's not that often. You get to just look up at the stars with no light pollution and think how God created each individual one. I have slept outside while sailing on the Indian and Atlantic Ocean. Last August, we crossed the equator, which is the centre line of the Earth. And because it was my first time doing it last year with the ship, I was made what is known as a shellback, which is a long-standing tradition for sailors. The next day, ship's company celebrated with a big crossing the equator ceremony, and everyone was given a certificate. Now, these photos are just from a few weeks ago. Now, last year we crossed at some random point on the equator, but this year was very different. On the 6th of August, while sailing from Angola to Ghana, we crossed the equator at point 0 north, 0 east, 0 south, and 0 west, which is point 0000. This means we crossed absolutely smack bang in the middle of the world. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that will probably never happen again, and the captain actually steered the ship just to make us take a detour during the sailing, just so we could all have this moment together. And I've actually brought my certificate home with me so it doesn't get ruined. So Logos Hope is officially the first ever GBA ship to do this, and it was an honour to be part of it. Again, we got a certificate and had a ceremony afterwards, but we celebrated in a different way to last year, so it was a nice change. Because I crossed the equator with the ship at point 0000, it meant I was then made a Royal Diamond shellback. I admit that when this moment was happening and we were all cheering and clapping, I did shed a few tears because I felt so incredibly blessed by something I never thought would be possible for me. Now, not every sailing is the most pleasant or fun. In my last update, I did say that I had a story to share from the sailing we had around the coast of South Africa from East London to Durban. So, during this sailing, we knew that there was a big storm happening, but we all had peace as we knew that our sailing course meant that we weren't planning to be in it. Little did we know, our ship was going to end up right in the path of the storm in a very dangerous position. It was late evening and I was sleeping as I was actually on night watch at the time. I was woken up as I heard many things falling on the floor in my cabin. Then things started to fall on the back of my head and on the back of my neck. I got out of bed as things just carried on falling and flying everywhere until my cabin was a total mess. I was all alone and I was extremely scared. I video called my mum crying because I just didn't know what to do. Next thing I know, I'm thrown halfway across my cabin and end up on the floor on the other side. I found out that at this moment, the ship had rolled 37 degrees on her side, which, might I add, is a sailing record for Logos Hope. Not one to be celebrated. Long story short, there was a problem with the 2 engines that we had running at the time, and they had automatically shut down, causing us to drift into the path of the storm, and we had no power at all to help us out. The captain sent a notice over the tannoy, which we have in all of our rooms and cabins, and called everyone up to deck 5 to be together and pray, as he needed to turn the ship, which was going to be a dangerous manoeuvre. I said goodbye to my mum, who I was still on call with at the time. No, not that goodbye, just a see you later. I threw some clothes on and I went up to be with everybody. We stood together in prayer as ship's company and prayed and trusted that God would help the ship and get us out of this situation. The captain thankfully managed to steer the ship round, and the engine department team managed to get all 4 engines going, and we sailed a different course to shore, actually arriving in Durban 30 hours earlier than planned. Even though a lot of internal damage was caused and we lost a lot of money, God kept us all safe. I must admit I was quite traumatized from this sailing, as were a lot of people. Some people even decided to go back home because of it. But after processing it and discussing with family, I am doing a lot better. And as you can tell, I have sailed again since, and I have been okay. I do still get nervous though when we sail and the ship starts moving a bit more than I would like, but I'm just putting my trust in God, and I know that his protecting hands are over all of us on board the ship. As most of you know, in October 22, 3 months before I left for the ship, I shared about Logos Hope and listed all the different departments on board. I very specifically said, and I quote, "Let's hope for everyone's sake I don't get put in engine." Yeah. Engine was actually the one department that I did not want. I wanted book fair, and that was my first choice before I even got accepted to go on the ship. After I had 10 days of what we call pre-ship training on board, I was given a white envelope, which had a piece of paper inside with what my department would be for the next 2 years. I said a little prayer, but I think I kind of already knew what was coming by this point. I took out the piece of paper and it said, "Dear Tina Bateson, you will be in the engine department." My heart sank right to the ground, and I was so sad, confused and upset. In my head, I was thinking, this is not for me. This is not why I came here. God, what are you doing? Then, after talking with my family and some people on board and having time to process it myself, I realised God was giving me a new challenge. I came to the ship to do what he called me to do, not what I wanted. And I knew I had a choice to trust that God must know what he was doing and knew what was best for me. Whilst I was in engine, I was pushed so far beyond my comfort zone, needing to go into small tanks at the bottom of the ship where no one can see you or hear you at times, working in 51-degree heat for weeks on end without any aircon in the engine room, cleaning and taking care of all the machines that we were held responsible for, chipping rust, painting metal, and so much more. But even though it was incredibly hard and dirty work with very long hours, I have grown as a person, met the most amazing and inspiring people, shown myself that I can face my fears and get through them with God's help, and gained, might I add, qualifications as an engineering watch rating. Words I never thought I would say. But each day I just did my best for God, and even when I wasn't feeling myself, I physically and mentally exhausted, I dug deep and persevered. By the end of my time there, I was so thankful that I had been given the opportunity to serve in engine, and although I was ready to move on, I was also very sad to say goodbye to what now I know is the best department on the ship. A massive highlight during my time in engine was being part of the dry dock team in Durban this year. Each year, the ship has to undergo extensive checks so she gains her certification for the following year. Last year, we had wet dock in Abu Dhabi, where the ship will stay in the water, but every other year, the ship has to completely come out of the water for 4 weeks, and this is what is known as dry dock. Only the engine and deck departments and some kitchen staff, so we don't all staff, stay on board. The rest of ship's company go on a mission trip all over the world. Now you might think, wow, that doesn't sound fair, and you're kind of right, as we worked almost every single day, very long hours to get the ship ready for inspection. Some of the things we had to do were cleaning rust from the outside of the ship. We had to go into all of the tanks, freshwater tanks, grey water tanks, black water tanks, and fuel sludge tanks, as you can see, and completely clean them out, completely dry. We did a lot of painting, we cleaned everything in the engine department, and many more things. But although it was very hard work, it was also the best time, and I felt a privilege to be part of such a big thing. Here is a picture of me taken under the bow of the ship. I mean, who can say they've stood under the ship that they have sailed on? And here is the deck and engine team in front of the newly painted ship before she was due to go back in the water. And here is me. So after my 18 months in engine, I applied to move departments as I felt it was my time to try something new. And a couple of weeks ago, I actually started my new role in Book Fair, and we are known as Book Fairies. This is a photo of some of our team. For those of you that don't know, Logos Hope is actually the world's largest floating book fair, aiming to share knowledge, help and hope with the people of the world wherever we go. So this means I now work in the main ministry area on the ship. I get to meet and interact with all of the locals that come on board, and I absolutely love it. For those of you that do know me, you know that I am a people person. I love meeting and speaking to new people. I love making sure everyone is okay, making sure that they feel welcomed and involved. This is actually what I wanted to do before even being accepted to the ship, but obviously I was on God's timing and not mine. So what's coming up for me? Until November, the ship will still be in Africa, but then we will have a 2-week sailing across the Atlantic to the Caribbean. Our first stop will be Bridgetown, Barbados. It will be a very exciting time for the ship, and I absolutely can't wait. To finish, I just wanted to thank you all from the very bottom of my heart for all your love, support, financial giving, and all of your prayers. I wouldn't have been able to do any of it without any of you, my Riverside family. So thank you. And lastly, a big shout out to all the children for following my journey and keeping in touch. It means so much to me, and you are all amazing. Talking to you over video call on a Sunday and seeing how excited you've been to see me and hear about my adventures has really lifted me up every single time. I hope my story is inspiring you to dream big, and maybe one day some of you will join the Logos Hope for your own adventure. Thanks for listening, everyone.